And now, ladies and gentlemen, you are entering New York's greatest place for all things film. Starring your host, Tommy Smart, your co-host, DJ Gowski, your head of reviews, Brother Wells, and your news anchor, Haley Marks. We now enter the studios to bring you The Screening Room on WRHU.
Hey, good morning. It's Thomas Smart live in New York. Gowski's bringing me to you via the magic of WRHU 88.7 FM. And you know what I do every time around 10 to 11 every Sunday for the past 2.5 years was always talk about movies. So let me see right now. What's the biggest thing I can think of to talk about right now would be including the whole hashtag Oscars so white phenomenon that's going on about. The only issue with that is that, honestly, after studying this entire thing for the past couple of weeks, as well as the SAG Awards and everybody's whole hatred of basically everybody being whites being nominated for awards, even though in retrospect awards don't even really matter, you shouldn't even care about that. You should more, hey, if you're making money, what should you be even being cared about?
I mean, it highlights a main. Oh, and people.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say. Speaking of hashtag not so white, we got Mendel right over here.
Okay. But it highlights just the main issue of just outside of the awards of just executives not enough colored executives and other members of the Hollywood elite. So it kind of highlights like even the bigger issue in Hollywood as far as diversity goes.
Yeah, but also I feel that there are a lot of creative and very talented people, and there have been since the industry not began, but since well into from the 30s. We have plenty of actual talented black actors, as well as other forms as well. And I feel that just to be singled out, say like for instance, Idris Elba wins,
he was at the fate of
basically does Beast of No Nation.
Right.
He gives a phenomenal performance in that. Mm-hmm. He shouldn't care whether or not he gets recognized.
No, that's the thing. The actors are not saying. Well, okay, the actors that are nominated are not saying that. They're not saying, "Oh, I got complete ownership here. I love being nominated or whatnot." It's coming more just from the fact that they're in past years. The Oscars has recognized a lot of phenomenal talent. Like the last time this happened was 2013. Mm-hmm. Lupita Nyong'o won Best Supporting Actress, and she's a Kenyan actress. Chiwetel Ejiofor was nominated. 12 Years a Slave won. Other years you've had Ray, which, by the way, is not a film that dealt with the usual slavery or, Africans at war. That was an actual film on a black musician. That was just a phenomenal film. And then you got other years of Forrest Whitaker won, Denzel, again, in 2012. It just strange. It just seems strange how, all of a sudden now.
Yeah, it's like a rapid.
It's like
it's just a rapid.
All right,
trend
so you go through a trend of just like more white people being nominated than black people. I get you want to be recognized.
I bet you 10 years ago, if if he was in the case, I bet you he wouldn't have even been recognized. But for some reason, just society is just oh, we have to be diverse.
Well, you don't want to force it. You honestly don't want to force it to say that there's actually.
But they're paying a lot more attention. I guess social media, people's hype, everyone gets to have their own attention on things. So it's just kind of out there.
In my personal opinion, I'll say this: Beast of No Nation should have actually gotten nominated. I got the chance to see the film over break. Phenomenal stuff. For Idris Elba, absolutely fantastic. Straight Outta Compton was a great film. Actually, a real phenomenal music biopic, and hopefully it starts a trend of new rapper biopics to come out. But I didn't think it was as worthy of Oscar worthy when I saw that film. I didn't leave thinking, oh, this is gonna get an Oscar or whatnot. So, there's some films that came out, but it's just that now black filmmakers have improved on the quality of work that they're showing now, and we're not getting things like 50 Shades of Black anymore. We're actually getting quality material now, and it kind of is just strange how the Academy just completely ignored that. But this also goes beyond just with black folks. This also goes to Benicio del Toro, who gave a great performance in Sicario, but he got completely ignored. So, But
I just get the vibe that most people are just, actors are very, if they're very emotional, wear their emotions on their sleeve. And my point being, I know you get
this is mainly coming just from public, from fans and people. This is barely coming from the actors.
Okay, I don't really care about the fans. I mean, honestly.
I'm just pointing out to you what the case is.
Oh, no.
Because you can't trust the fans. Not 100%.
All right. I'm just saying that this is coming mainly just from the general public. As far as actors saying, there's only been Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, and then Spike Lee as well. Well, he's a director. But,
Spike's always got to protest something.
but
I mean,
yeah.
no. Here's the thing with Spike. He made actually a really good movie. I thought Chirac was actually really good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it wasn't awards worthy, and I'm sure maybe he wasn't even talking about himself. I did like John Cusack's performance, but that's just like it's fun seeing a white guy play a black pastor.
I mean, listen. At the end of the day, though, I mean, we all have our opinions on it. I have my own personal opinion on this thing, and so do you and whatnot, but these films are not going to by any means be diminished for how great they were. Like, these films, the black films that came out last year are going to have their own legacy coming forth, especially, Straight Outta Compton. Like, that's going to be remembered for at least a good while and whatnot. So, but I'm just explaining the situation as far as how I feel
and another
about
thing
it.
too, and also with Beast of No Nation as well. That was a movie that was released on Netflix originally, and I think that was very innovative, and revolutionary. People will remember that, and the performances were really good. People will remember that too. I just don't think you should be shackled to people winning an Oscar or winning an award, being recognized, because that doesn't mean that it's not worthy of your attention.
Right. No, and I agree with you on that. I mean, we all love these award shows and whatnot because we just like seeing people getting their credit and their dues. But of course, at the end of the day, we all know these are still great films, regardless.
Yeah, exactly, and performances as well as and what goes on from there.
Regardless of the fact, Michael B. Jordan didn't get nominated for Creed. I'll still see Creed next week or next month or whenever. You know?
Exactly.
And I'll still enjoy it.
Well, with Creed as well, the standout wasn't him. Yeah, yes, he was good.
Right.
Like Stallone, since it's Stallone's legacy, Stallone's movie, Stallone's time to shine in some way. He's the one that gets the attention for it, and obviously Michael B. Jordan gets kind of put to the sidelines only because it really is. Even though it says Creed, it really is a Rocky movie. I don't care what people say. It really is. I mean, I know they're jumpstarting its own franchise.
Yeah, I mean, that was just more like a vehicle for him, and just to kind of get Michael B. Jordan, like, especially for him to bounce back after Fantastic Four. So,
well, he worked with Ryan Coolidge on Fruitvale Station,
right?
So that's why he got that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But so, and the other big thing from the SAG Awards as well was the theory of relativity. Kevin Spacey wins a SAG Award for Frank Underwood in House of Cards. And he comes up and gives this award and makes this little cryptic code name for theory of relativity, saying himself going up, up, up. Theory of relativity. The big thing with that is that he's the new studio chief of the Relativity Media, which I believe either merged or bought his company, Trigger Street Productions, where Dana Brunetti, as well as is the president of the company. So I thought it was kind of funny. Makes this little cryptic code. Because he's obviously going to be a new studio chief, which is an interesting rise for him. Interesting rise. Goes from being a actor to, in theater, to going to movies, to being running his own production company, being a studio chief. But when Relativity Media went bankrupt, Chapter 11 bankruptcy, going to his company and trying to merge, bring them on as president and head of creative film and TV, because we look at what Kevin Spacey's company has produced, everything from the social network to which one was the other one? Captain Phillips, amongst other movies that they've been producing the past couple of years, and House of Cards. I mean, going on Netflix with that. Even though Netflix says that House of Cards was their first TV show that they produced, it really wasn't actually. Longmire with Steven Van Zandt was actually their first TV show they produced, but him being pretty innovative with that brought them up. So he's been doing pretty well, which is kind of funny. I think it's kind of hilarious there. But that was that award show, and then with all those things, it's all for the TV show, so it's kind of fun. Let's see what else. What was this one? The ensemble. This ensemble was Spotlight.
Yep.
Actually, really good with that. That movie in its own right is that's like the next. Was it All the President's Men? Yeah, All the President's Men.
Yeah, I mean, it was like influenced by it. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think it's influenced by it, but definitely in that genre of movie, which is the whole, basically.
I mean, in terms of just trying to find finding the truth, in a story, yeah.
Well, you have a great ensemble there. You have John Slattery, and then you have
Mark Ruffalo.
Actually, Mark Ruffalo, he's the only person in that movie I didn't think actually gave a great performance. So
really, he stood out more than the rest of them.
That's because he shouted, but I didn't think
but his character was more like a go-getter. He was really searching for the truth more than the rest of them.
Obsessed with the story.
Oh, I get exactly. That. I get that. I just think of everyone else. He just gave one that was more forced one. I just he's a great actor. Don't get me wrong. He's a very, very good actor. He's done a lot of great stuff. This one, he in himself, I just felt that he was more to forcing it, to faking it. It's to parodying the whole news reporter, energetic. Oh my God, we gotta get this. I get it. He was like,
Well, every news supporting team has someone that's like a certain character, someone who stands out.
but he, in my own mind, didn't actually. It was just too forced to me. Everybody else seemed more, but of course everybody else was more mellow, so obviously he stands out more.
I mean, I thought as a whole, like the ensemble cast really did deliver.
Oh, great!
Yeah.
Oh yeah, great stuff. Even Rachel McAdams was great in that.
Right. I thought, her character really, she was about the story, and it also provided a more realistic look at the life of print journalists.
And yeah, of course, in that movie too, also just how Boston is captured.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like,
also this was a true story. I mean, that's really how Michael Resende was, and so it's not like Mark Ruffalo was like having to like draw something out of thin air with that.
I know, but it's the only thing that didn't stand out is like just felt more forced. All right, Mark Ruffalo shouting, get it.
I didn't think Rachel McAdams stood out that much at all.
Well, it was
but- I mean, other than her being the only female of that crew.
Well, that's true
know.
too.
But
That's kind of easy to stand out.
I was really more impressed with Mark Ruffalo than her. But
I like Michael
nonetheless, the whole
Keaton's
ensemble
performance.
cast was great.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got John Slattery playing basically Roger Sterling from Mad Men. I mean, that kind of guy.
Without the suit.
Yeah, without the suit. Good point. And mustache, for that matter.
Oh, that mustache.
Of course. So, let me see what else we have. All right, so Kim Basinger plays Kim Basinger. Remember her from Batman from 1989, or amongst other movies too.
L.A. Confidential.
Confidential, but I'm just thinking that's the one my go-to for. Batman 1989. It's been other stuff since then. So she's been cast as Christian Grey's former lover in the 50 Shades of Grey series, which means we have to get another one of those. But not bad.
And that just got nominated for a Razzie not too long ago.
Well, not. I always laugh too because I know you and I were the ones that were kind of like, is that terrible?
No, it really wasn't. I mean,
It wasn't good, but I mean, it wasn't.
I don't have a desire to see it anytime soon, but it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it.
Well, I think when most people were going for it, I think it was an improvement off the book, and I think
That's what many people said. It was an improvement off the book.
which is really bad. I mean, because most people say the exact opposite,
Yeah.
But that's different. So she's gonna play former lover, which is kind of funny because when news broke, it was like, all right, now bring in the 9.5 weeks references. Because if you remember, she also played very similar story to where she also played like a young Dakota Johnson in that picture, being infatuated with a rich, wealthy guy who had weird sexual fetishes. Oh yeah, you should see it sometime, Kowski. Watch it, because like you can amazing how much you can incorporate. This movie like sets the standard for like what you can do with food and sex. Combine the two. It's really
That's
interesting.
always a very common question, obviously. So like which one's better? So like you just I always say put both. So
Oh yeah, just combine the two. Let's go.
yeah,
It works out fine.
Of course, every time.
Oh yeah.
Every time.
All right. So what time is it? We need a
We probably gotta go to the next
split.
thing.
Yeah, let's go to the next thing too. So when we get back, I'm gonna play this little interview I did with this guy named Fil Eisler. He's from Prague, and fun fact, like that's important.
That's a
and
nice,
he's also
nice distant interview.
the composer of new movie How to Be Single. Speaking of Dakota Johnson, and he also did Empire. So we kind of talked a little bit about stuff about music and just not only that too, kind of interesting. I got him to talk about autotune, which I thought was interesting. So when we get back, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get back here on the screening room. But first, the original is back. So Haley, what's going on?
So coming up, we've got Ryan Coogler will give this year's Kent lecture. The Prometheus sequel isn't what you expect, and we've got all the news on the 2016 SAG Awards. So all that and more, that's all coming up on the screening room.
All right, this is Beck and Mitchell right back here on the screening room on 88.7 FM WRHU.
Yesterday at the 22nd Annual Screen Actors Guild Awards, better known as the SAG Awards, took place at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, California. The winners included a long list of outstanding and deserving actors, including Queen Latifah in Bessie, Johnny Depp from Black Mass, Bryan Cranston in Trumbo, Helen Mirren in Women in Gold, Spotlight, Beasts of No Nation, The Big Short, and Straight Outta Compton, and many more. In just a few days, director Ryan Coogler will host Kent's annual lecture. The University of Chicago's organization of black students have held the lecture every year since 1984. The honor is named after the University of Chicago's first black tenured professor, Dr. George Kent. The lecture is aimed at providing community exposure to black American innovators. According to OBS officials, Kugler will be discussing, quote, blackness in mixed forms of media, specifically film, the importance of representation, and why stories such as these are so important to tell. Kugler is best known for his work on Creed, Fruitvale Station, and the upcoming Black Panther. Kugler's Kent Lecture will be held February 9th. Marvel's Black Panther hits theaters in 2018. And star of Prometheus, Naomi Rapace, will not be making a return in Ridley Scott's sequel. Production for the 5th annual Alien installment, Alien Covenant, is scheduled to begin soon in Australia. The pilot is centered around a colony ship titled Covenant that encounters a new planet. The storyline for Alien Covenant begins 10 years following Prometheus. Alien Covenant's current lead is Catherine Watterson of Inherent Vice. Alien Covenant appears in theaters on October 6th, 2017. That's all the news I have for you right now, but stay tuned for your next news update coming up in just a bit. Back to you guys.
So Fil Eisler, he's from Prague, and he's a composer of new film How to Be Single, starring Dakota Johnson. And it's kind of fun. It's a story about, just a girl living in Manhattan. How fun can that be? Great stuff. So, now we haven't seen that a million times. But regardless, the music is actually really dope, and we had to talk. That's coming out February 12th. So we talked to Fil Eisler about the music in the film. So let's play that for a little bit, and we'll be right back after that.
So, How to Be Single. You're talking about the script was fun, and how big is doing a script like this? I mean, like, how big is, because you can have like a really bad movie. Let's just take the general history of film composing.
Mm-hmm.
You can have an okay movie, but the score is phenomenal. So,
Right.
I mean, does it almost matter to you what the genre is, or what the story is, who's involved, who's attached?
Well, they all matter. I mean, the genre less so than anything else. I'm certainly not, more comfortable in one genre than the next. I'm comfortable with whether it's any good or not, which is down to the script and the characters and absolutely who's involved. But the bottom line is, I came in really towards the tail end of the process with this movie, as I often do, and, what they had was just a really good, solid, pretty complete movie by the time I got to it, and it really is fun. I mean, it's just got great performances, it's a great script, so doing something like that isn't, it's none of it's hard anyway. I love doing this for a living, so it's not like, I'd be lying if I said I went to work every day.
How does this come to you?
How did I first get involved in it? I think the first I heard about it was through my friend Susan Kent, who's the music supervisor on the show, and she and I had talked about it, for a while. We'd worked together previously, and then the guys at New Line sent me the script, and I just, I loved it. It was genuinely funny. There's not many scripts you read, comedy scripts, that really make you spit your coffee across the room, but this was one of them.
And for the folks that don't know, the plot of the film is about, what's it about? You have Dakota Johnson trying to be single. How's that play out?
Well, I don't want to give anything away, but she's, let's just say it's about her. I suppose it's somewhat of a coming-of-age story in a very small way, but it's really about her life in New York over the space of, a year or so, and kind of finding out who she is, I think, and all the pitfalls associated with that, which is obviously the fun of it. And that part I can identify with, because I sort of spent a couple of years in New York doing something pretty similar. So it was fun to see that up on the screen, with some very typically New York pratfalls associated with it.
Have you spent a lot of time in New York? Because I imagine going there to compose a New York film, you want to try to get the atmosphere included in the music somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that's pretty much embedded into my DNA now anyway. I've spent a lot of time in New York in my life. And most of it was done here in LA and in a very short amount of time.
You saw the movie and then you went to work. So what's your creative process in composing the music, writing the music, scoring the music for it?
Well, I mean, every film's different. and every film has its own quirks. There are films that I'm doing now where I'm on very early in the process. There are films like this where I come in right at the end. But if there's a common thread, it's usually that I try and find the themes that I'm going to use throughout the score first. And there's not a ton of score in this movie. There's a lot of songs. And when Christian, the director, came to me first, he basically said the score in this movie has to be the heart of Alice, which is Dakota Johnson's character. It's got to be the emotion and the heart of her character. So really the main thing was finding a theme for her. And that was the first thing, and usually I do that away from picture. I watch the film, sort of absorb how I feel about it, and then and what was fun actually was I went to a test screening of the film to see it for the first time, and so I got to see it with an audience that absolutely loved the film. The film was scoring, super, super high from the very beginning, and it was really great. I mean, I'd encourage people to see it at the theaters rather than just at home on TV, because it's great seeing it with the crowd. It's almost like a live performance. So that's kind of what I did. Is I watched the film, I went away, wrote some themes, and pretty much the first theme that I sat down and played for Christian seemed to resonate with everybody, and we took it from there.
And then were you surprised, like you did Empire? You did Empire.
Right, and still doing it, yeah.
Right. I mean, were you surprised when you get that? Because that's mostly like hip-hop kind of music.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when I first got the call, I sort of went, I was like, oh, the right guy, because, I didn't, as much as I love hip-hop, and I do, I mean, I think Straight Outta Compton is the best, I think it's the best punk album ever made. I think it's just pure, I bet the Sex Pistols wish they'd made that record, but I did sort of wonder a little bit, but then when I kind of got talking to Lee Daniels and everybody behind the project, I realized why they wanted to get me in was because they wanted a very cinematic orchestral score, which is a lot of what I've done over the years, and they wanted to do something that was more akin to a sort of old gangster movie than just plaster the whole thing in wall-to-wall hip-hop. So again, it's another one of those situations where there's a lot of songs, but the score serves a very specific purpose,
Also, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Fil Eisler. He's the composer of the new film, How to Be Single, as well as Empire and Revenge, amongst other shows. Was film scores a part of your life ever at all? And if so, like even now, even if it wasn't before, now, do you ever listen back on other old film scores or watch old movies and pay attention to the scoring? Is there something to learn from the past?
Always.
Yeah.
There's something to learn from everything, man.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, I think you're a fool if you don't see the learning potential in every single piece of music you hear, whether you like it or not. But I mean, film scores are always part of my life. Look, it's as impossible for John Williams to have not been part of your life as it was impossible for the Beatles to not have been part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's more of a case of popular culture, I think, than being into film scoring. But I think the music that I grew up with, like I said, which a lot of it was rooted in the 60s and 70s, even though, that was kind of before my time, that I think I often thought of scoring movies. I think that my earliest memories of writing music, when I was very, very young, it was always something that was accompanied by images as far as I was concerned, whether that was a movie or whether that was, just something in my head. I remember listening to McCartney's first solo record a lot when I was a kid, and there are tracks on there that I always imagined as a film score, basically, And as I got more into it, and as I sort of came back to studying classical music, I think film scores became an inevitable part of that. And I think more old film scores rather than, what's around now. I think what's around now you're going to encounter when you go to the movies every day. Although there are, some super talented composers around. It's not that I'm sort of decrying their music in any way. I just think the stuff that I end up looking at, and where, for instance, I want to study the orchestration or the method, how they did it, tends to look to the past because it's just so much more interesting to me to figure out what Franz Waxman did, or what Steiner did, or what John Williams did, or Herman, in a day when everything was sort of very manual and very based around your composer being extremely capable in every way. I think composers now have to be capable in a whole range of different things, from computers to all kinds of stuff, to, being a therapist and a priest and a rabbi. But I think, that's definitely sort of an era that's probably more interesting to me in terms of studying.
You think? What do you think you brought up, when you bring that up, you think of what's the difference, the method of composing music changed, in the tools you use.
How has it changed?
Well, you're bringing that up.
Yeah.
You bring that up. And I'm thinking, does the technology that you use ever kind of inhibit composing music that's more original?
Yes. In a word, yes. I think it can be a help and a hindrance depending on, how well you know the tools. I think if you're going to use a sequencer, it needs to be as familiar to use your main instrument, It needs to kind of be an instrument. If you're really going to write music for it. If you're just using it as a sketch pad, it's kind of limiting because, for instance, you don't always want to write music to a click track. I mean, sometimes that's appropriate, sometimes it isn't. And if you're going to write that way, you've got to know how to do it with a computer, because if everything's fixed to a grid, it can make certain kinds of music very unmusical, particularly when you're writing for an orchestra. But in a lot of different situations, and actually How It Be Single was a good example of that, there were a lot of cues that had a very rubato sort of feel to them and were very spaced out, and would have been really difficult to write those just to a straight click track, because it just, it takes your mind into a completely different headspace. So in that sense, yeah, I think there are times you need to be able to step away from the computer, and there are times that I think it's very helpful. Well, it's like any piece of technology. There's good and bad. It's like the way people talk about the latest evolutionary steps in virtual reality. Like maybe years from now, who knows? Maybe a year or 2 years from now, we're going to be in a situation where FaceTime goes into something more 3D and holographic, and part of me says, people are already so glued to their phones that can't be too good. That's going to disconnect us. But then at the same time, think about the person that maybe has a sick relative that they can't get to physically, and they have a chance to actually connect. So I think there's a good and bad side to technology, and auto-tune's no different. I think it sucks the way that it's not that auto-tune's a bad thing inherently. I mean, imagine you've got a great vocal performance, but if you could just tweak that one bit, okay, sure, whatever. But that very easily becomes this sort of, downward spiral of Pro Tooling everything to death. And I think that's why every record on the air has sounded the same for, in whatever style is the fashion of the moment for a long, long time. And I don't think that's that different from any time in history. I think any time something's successful, people try and copy it. It's just, the way it's churned out, and has been for a long time, and this is even before auto-tune. I think the 80s are a big culprit in this too, is that, it just became, I think listening got a little bit dumbed down at some point from listening to what music actually sounds like when people are playing it, to this sort of perfect puzzle where everything is shoehorned into a sort of a mold. And I think especially now, I couldn't tell you one sort of teen pop record from the next. And I just think that's bloody boring.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, you look at the fads, how they just, you're telling, like these teen bands that come and go, like the Jonas Brothers, between who's the new guys? The ones that
I wouldn't have a clue, mate. I'm so out of that scene, And the thing is, what's really sad about it, I think, is it's not like there's no craft or no artistry that goes into even making those records. Somebody wrote those songs. Somebody has a talent for writing those songs. I certainly never looked down my nose at a 3-minute pop song. I think it's a really hard medium to do something good in, but by the time it makes it to a record and it's so watered down, there's just nothing interesting about that,
Well, yeah, to fit radio play, I think since most people are listening to pop music on the radio when they're driving around, they don't want to hear anything too complex, too complicated. You're not going to hear film scores.
I don't even think that's true. I think if you listen to a record like the Gautier single that was massive, right? Somebody I used to know, whatever it was called. I remember the first time I heard that, I was driving back from a session, and I nearly rear-ended a bus when I heard it. I thought it was so great. And it's not, it was original. It was original in every way. You could tell how strong that guy's voice was, what an original thought behind everything about that song, the format of it, the form of it, the idea behind it, the duet. And it was a massive hit. It's just, I think most record companies, publishing companies, as has always been the case, and I think film studios can be the same way, they're about making money. So they know what makes money, and if one thing has made money, they'll, copy it to death.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't deal generally in originality. To be an original, you not only have to break through, all the musical noise, but you have to break through all the corporate noise too, just to be able to be heard.
Oh yeah, and I'm talking to death on the show about how, basically the problem with the studio system, and I mean you can even say it filters into the music industry as well. We're just copying what works, what makes money, what's popular, and just doing it to death where it just doesn't become original anymore. When in fact, doing something original is what I believe art in any form, cinema or music or painting even, to break
anything.
convention.
Look at even look at Empire. It's not like that was, original doesn't equal uncommercial.
Mm-hmm.
It's just somebody has to take a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dumb because people, studios, TV studios, film studios, record companies, they take chances every day on everything they put out. You're taking just as much of a chance putting out something that's completely asinine.
Mm-hmm.
Because safe isn't necessarily what people want to hear. It's this whole notion that audiences are stupid and they want to be talked down to is absolute bollocks.
It's true. It's true. I mean, do you see anything like when you look at a movie? Not as much. I feel like I'm sure How to Be Single is a phenomenal movie, and people should see it because it's coming out February 12th. But when you look at a show like Empire, do you think anything that's radical about that, except for the fact that it's?
I think at the time there was something radical about what Lee and Danny came up with. Yeah, this idea of a total soap opera that there's a retro sort of element to it, I suppose, in some ways, but it's also so on the edge of what's happening. Especially when it first started, it was it represented a lot of things that people were talking about, a lot of things that were controversial, LGBT issues, sexism, racism, in and outside the hip hop community, and musically it was doing something that was both familiar and new. So I think it was, if nothing else, it was ballsy.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to give it that.
Right.
And I take my hats off to anybody doing stuff like that. And of course, now I guarantee there's a slate of shows that are just like Empire getting ready to be launched.
So if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Fil Eisler. He's the composer of the new film How to Be Single, as well as the show Empire. And so I guess, Phil, in summing up things here, if the movie comes out February 12th,
Mm-hmm.
and if there's any one big reason why people should see the movie, what would that be?
It's just fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really fun movie. It's one of those things that, it's one of those films where I think you can just check all the stress and the bullshit you've gone through that day at the door and just go and have fun. It's a genuinely funny movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's got heart. It's beautifully shot. Score's all right. Go see bloody thing.
putting it modestly. All right, awesome. Thanks so much. This is Fil Eisler. He's the composer of the movie How to Be Single. So it comes out February 12th. So if you're into that kind of stuff, go see it. Thanks so much for being here, Phil. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Fil Eisler right there. And, of course, me and Christian chilling here as Tommy is somewhere around here.
It's like MIA at the moment.
Yeah.
Tommy, come in, Tommy.
He's gonna pop up from underneath
Major
the desk
Tommy,
right
come in.
now.
Oh, man.
Ground control to Major Tommy.
Hello. That's right. It's a good way to
man.
communicate. At least you're on radio, so he may hear us.
Of course. But anyway, people, we got more coming up here on the screening room. We'll be reviewing 50 Shades of Black, The Finest Hours, Kung Fu Panda 3, and got plenty more here for you. But right now we're going to give y'all a little music to go with here on this break here on the screening room. But before we do that, Haley, what do you got for news?
So this time, Ridley Scott lets us in on a secret about the film industry, and the newest trailer for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them reveals some interesting details. That's all coming up next right here on The Screening Room.
Yep, people, so sit back and be chill, as our host always says. This is The Screening Room, WRHU 88.7 FM.
Hey you. You see that video in the middle of the screen? If you missed last week's episode, click it. Click it here, right now. I mean, seriously. Now, do it now. Now let's get back to The Screening Room.
Making movies is no easy feat, and even pros like Ridley Scott admit that it's a difficult field. The legendary sci-fi director, whose works include the Alien franchise and most recently The Martian, admitted that making a movie is like brain surgery. He said, quote, "You're putting together a whole group of people, you're trying to budget it as accurately as you can. At the end of it, you've got to sell a lot of tickets. But I love the challenge. If you don't do the job." End quote. Although Scott's job is often incredibly stressful, his drive to tell stories is stronger than ever. Next up on Scott's agenda is several Prometheus sequels and a second Blade Runner, proving that this old flame is not out just yet. A fresh new trailer for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them was just released last week, and it's chock full of mystery. The featurette came through on Pottermore, a social network for Harry Potter superfans, giving users a first glance into the magical world of Fantastic Beasts. The film stars Eddie Redmayne as Newt Scamander, magizoologist whose suitcase is filled with wonder and fantastical creatures. Several other characters are introduced in the trailer, and all of them are depicted holding that same suitcase. What's really in store for the new Harry Potter prequel? We'll just have to wait until its November 18th release date to find out. That's all the news I have for you right now, but stay tuned for your final news update coming up in just a bit. Back to you, Tommy.
All right, so here in the Screening Room, we always review movies, but at the same time, too, Brother Wells, do you have a top 10? Because we haven't done one of those in a while.
Yeah, let's go right to it.
Well, hold on a second.
Oh.
Before we do that, I want to review, what was it?
Oh, right, yeah. Let's
50
go right.
Shades,
50 Shades of Black. Yeah.
50 Shades of Black. So, 50 Shades of Black basically just a spoof off of...
It's a parody of 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. And it's done by Marlon Wayans. And I think we get the idea of what it's all about. So let's go play the clip.
Christian, we have to talk.
You mean like white people?
What's wrong with that?
Well, they just talk a lot. You know, they do it differently than black people do. White people don't like to argue. They like to discuss. And they start throwing around all these big SAT words and putting a lot of emotional guilt on each other. It's just too much to deal with. I like it the black way, you know, where we curse each other out, we may fight, and then we get cool again, but we talk about each other behind each other's back.
What you not gonna do?
Oh, no, what you not gonna do?
You not gonna
You're
do?
not about to now.
So, you know, I said that you get the idea because this is basically trying to be off of 50 Shades of Grey, which some people say was terrible enough. But this is just, it's written by somebody who doesn't feel like they know what humor is. And I'm not a comedian, but or anything like that, you know. So
I know it's a parody. I know, you know, it's the kind of films that Marlon Wayans does, but this was stupid. It was just really
It
stupid.
makes me think of like Epic Movie, basically.
Well, you know, one thing about Epic Movie, which is funny, I think Epic Movie at the same time, yeah, that was terrible. Most of them, I think all those scary movies are all terrible, absolutely god awful. And, you know, I was outcasted because I thought they were all terrible from, you know, when you're in elementary school and everybody thinks those are awesome. Fun thing about Epic Movie, actually, somebody I was watching it with, actually, who was a friend of mine at the time, he, like, thought it dragged.
It dragged. Well, I mean, yeah, the plotline barely gets anywhere until they can throw in yet another, like, single spoof of something.
The thing really is, parody films don't really have plot lines. They're just there to give you stupid moments,
I mean,
or some good moments.
Well, it's there, but it's meant to, like, make absurdity out of the plot.
That's the thing. It's just absurdity.
No, it's like there's absolutely no charisma, there's no interest, it's not
Yeah,
funny at
this
all.
is not funny.
It's almost like, which is same too, because Marlon Wayans is talented, is very funny.
And people don't realize, but he has made some good films in his career, like Requiem for a Dream, and even White Chicks. Some people, there's a big fanfare for White Chicks as well. So
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it's funny in its own way, but I mean, like and even that was recycling the, you know, the detective dressed up as a woman to go undercover.
Right.
Like Big Mama's house and all the things.
Right. I mean, it was looking at, you know, Valley Girls and everything, but just tries too hard to make certain stereotypical jokes, like turn it on its head. Just Absolutely terrible acting, including from the main lead, who was, oh god, she was ugly as I don't know what. But yeah, this is just absolutely terrible. I don't really have much to say. Just skip this, please.
Yeah, skip it. Yeah, sounds sad. Now, Brother Owens, what's on your top 10?
You want to do the top 10 now?
Well, let's see that.
All right,
Let's
go ahead.
kick it.
Play that music.
Now it's time for the Screening Room's Top 10.
Okay, so the political debates have been this week, and here at the Screening Room, we like to keep everything film related. So these are the top 10 best political documentaries. At number 10, we got The War Room. This was a documentary of the 1992 presidential campaign of Bill Clinton and his organization, directed by Chris Hedges and D.A. Pennebaker. At number 9, Perfect Candidate, a 96 documentary about the 94 Senate race in Virginia between Chuck Robb and Oliver North. At number 8, we got 2016 Obama's America, a 2012 documentary examining the question, if Barack Obama won a second term, where will we be in 2016? And it's 2016 now, so we'll see if the documentary comes true. At number 7, we got Secrecy. This was directed by Peter Galson and Rob Moss. This was on a 2008 feature on government secrecy. At number 6, we got Michael Moore's Bowling for Columbine, a 2002 doc on the Columbine shooting in April '99. He looks at other acts of gun violence and how they relate to other issues, and Michael Moore won a Best Documentary Feature Oscar for this. At number 5, we got Sicko, another documentary from Michael Moore, and this was on the healthcare industry and the pharmaceutical industry as well. And this was another bold documentary from him. At number 4, we got Crisis, Behind a Presidential Commitment. This was a 63 documentary that was directed by Robert Drew, and it covers the Alabama stand on the schoolhouse door. This featured Robert Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, and Alabama Governor George Wallace. And this was added in the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress in 2011. At number 3, An Inconvenient Truth. This was a Oscar-winning 2006 documentary that was on Al Gore and his campaign of global warming. At number 2, we got Fahrenheit 9/11. Michael Moore's bold doc on what happened after 9/11 and how the Bush administration allegedly used the event to push forward its agenda for unjust wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. This is the highest-grossing documentary film of all time. And at number 1, we got Primary, a 1960 documentary that was also written and directed by Robert Drew, and it was basically a breakthrough in the documentary film style, and it used mobile cameras, lighter equipment, and followed the candidates throughout the day and right before the results, and basically changed the whole documentary game. So that is your top 10.
Cool. All right. Back here on the Screening Room, we're actually going to review The Finest Hour, which is ironic because it's not Finest. The movie's like 2 hours long, so it's like Finest Hours. Just saying.
Yeah, plural.
So we're going to do that right before we get back, and then we'll do the box office review when we get back here on the Screening Room. 88.7 WRHU. Yep. Oh, yeah. Hey, what we got?
Josephine's quirky character prep, the trailer for the upcoming DreamWorks Troll feature is released, and the latest news for the highly anticipated 50 Shades Darker casting. Ooh, that's all coming up next, right here on the Screening Room.
Stay tuned. We'll have more fun here when we get back later.
There is nothing like getting into character. Josephine's take on the role of a Roman soldier in an upcoming film, Risen, a film based on the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. To get into character, he decided to go to the gladiator school to gain historical understanding of the time period and his part. Besides this film, the actor is going to remain super busy, as it was just announced that he will portray Michael Jackson in the upcoming British film. Fienne's over-the-top prep can only make us wonder what he will do to take on the king of pop. You may remember them on your keychains, and in the sight of them may bring you back to the 90s, but DreamWorks has just released the trailer for the upcoming Trolls movie. Anna Kendrick and Justin Timberlake will voice the two leading roles in the animated feature. The wacky-haired toys will sing and dance throughout the film to a variety of pop hits. Other A-listers in the film include James Corden, Jason Schwartzman, Gwen Stefani, and Russell Brand. A new casting update is for 50 Shades Darker. The 50 Shades sequel has cast an Oscar winner, Kim Basinger. Basinger will play the role of Elena Lincoln, Christian Grey's former business partner and love interest. Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson will reprise the roles in the upcoming feature. The film is set to hit theaters in February 2017. That's all the news I have for you this week, but stay tuned for more news next week, right here only on The Screening Room. And back to you, Tommy.
Finest hours, which is interesting. Finest hours. I don't think it was their finest hours. I think it was their dullest hours. But I don't find anything really fine about this. So let's do finest hours. It's basically about these guys that Chris Pine's in it, and he's like the Coast Guard, and basically go out to do this really insane rescue mission.
Yeah, it was a rescue mission in the 50s, and the SS Pendleton was split in two. Ray Cyber took charge of the whole thing, trying to keep it together, while Chief Warrant Officer Daniel Cliff ordered the rescue mission to go find them, and Bernie Weber went out, and they were basically battling against the ferocious high seas out in Massachusetts. Play the clip.
That boat is too small for these seas. And this ship will be sunk by nightfall. Now, every fella here wants to live. The only way that happens is if we run her aground. Now we're gonna set up a watch and look out for a shoal. I need 4 men working the police on the emergency tiller. I need 4 men manning the pumps after steering, and the rest of you run a bucket line topside down below, communicate with the engine room.
So, it's interesting. When they're in the water, and it's diving up and down, going boom, 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 and water's splashing everywhere, they're soaked, they don't look cold.
They don't look cold.
Well, they are trained crewmen.
But still, no, I don't care how much training you have. No, if it's freezing cold, it's freezing cold.
Well, you try to ignore it, especially when they're trying to save a bunch of crew members.
But also,
especially when they're like ice cold in Titanic, when they're all in the ice cold water.
At least there you can see their breath. When it's so cold, you can actually see your breath. They don't see that here. And then when they're finally rescued, they get out, they're having conversation with people, going, hey, how's it going? We're so saved and everything like that. No, get those people to an ambulance. I mean, the hypothermia, It's not, it was really, that part was really odd to me. Also, this,
it has comparisons to The Perfect Storm a little bit. Some comparisons.
Right. But I mean, in how? I mean...
Well, the water sequences, the fact that this is almost a disaster film on a boat and whatnot.
And I mean, so again, this is the second movie to be made about water. Water. It was hard to see in amongst other movies too, and that was not as good here either. I think one thing is too most interesting thing here is costume design. It really looks like the 50s. Or it looks like you have the love interest, fiance.
Right.
She looks totally from the
At the same time, though, with that, the story only really picks up about 20-30 minutes in because they spend so much time with that backstory.
Right.
And that kind of took it out of me for a bit.
So we're about running out of time, so we're gonna speed through this. But I say see it if you're really interested in historical movies. But ultimately, there's not enough here to really gravitas.
Casey Affleck, Chris Pine did a pretty good job in here, and I'd say marginally see it.
All right, cool. And then Kung Fu Panda. Let's do this real quick.
Yeah, so basically Poe is back, and he realizes he's got a lot to learn, and he's still training with his master, but he gets a visit from his father, who's been searching for him, and Poe gets word of an evil guy named Kai, and so he's tasked with training a colony of pandas to fight against Kai and his army. And let's go to this clip.
This is the Hall of Heroes. Home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts in all of China.
Whoa! This place is awesome.
You were gonna say awesome, right? Because it totally is.
Totally.
But be super careful. Everything's very fragile here, like the urn of whispering warriors. Someone broke that once.
Who?
Some idiot. Check it out. It's the legendary battle rickshaw of Emperor Hawk.
Sweet ride.
I think the fact that I didn't see this movie, I just hearing this, really want to see this movie. It just seems so enthusiastic.
It was surprisingly good.
It's one thing too I like about it is that this franchise is a solid franchise. It's they could honestly just see this is a kids movie. We don't need to really think about this. Do it well. But I like how Panda goes from learning the craft to being a novice to actually maturing and mastering it, and then so there's like an evolutionary step.
To follow the story.
He doesn't go just to being like a lazy panda or whatever like that. I know this sounds funny because we're talking about a panda here, but there's actually an evolution of character here, which means that they actually took the time to actually write this and actually care about it, which is something I just want once in a while. And I
agree.
And for a January film, that's really great.
Well, I mean, for a kids movie, it's interesting. And there's also like adult themes in here too, where you actually have the whole parental.
And the voice cast was really good. Bryan Cranston really fits well into the animation world.
He's got this distinct voice.
Really good here, and everybody else was great. J.K. Simmons, everyone. So go see this, please.
Yeah, it was good. Cool. So that's what we thought. With this last minute remaining, let's go see what you guys did at the box office. Haley.
So coming in at number 1 this week is Kung Fu Panda 3, which grossed $10.5 million on its opening weekend. Up next is The Finest Hours, grossing $3.3 million on its opening weekend. In third place is The Revenant, which grossed $3.2 million this weekend and $128.9 million overall. And in fourth place is still Star Wars The Force Awakens, which made $2.4 million this weekend and a whopping $887 million overall. And finally is The Boy, which grossed $2.3 million this weekend and $15.9 million overall.
All right, so thanks, Haley, so much. You're awesome. So, of course, guys, we got to bounce. But, of course, tune in next week for another exciting episode of The Screening Room. This is Tommy Smart, King of Movie Business, signing off.
And remember, tune in next Sunday on 88.7 WRHU FM. You just left The Screening Room with Tommy Smart and DJ Gowski.